So I rarely get excited about technology these days. New phones, new TVs, like they're cool, but like they just don't really strike my curiosity that much anymore. But the new Steam stuff seems very interesting, specifically the machine. Actually, I did a community poll asking people what products they were interested in most from Steam. The machine got 45%, the frame got 40%, and the deck got 16%. And I'm not sure, those numbers don't add up. I don't know how that's possible, but that's what it says. And this is like the YouTube app. I don't know, 1 extra percent, okay. And I thought it'd be interesting to sort of talk about it, but also discuss some of the community feedback and some of the questions people had about it, some of the things people said about it, and just kind of generally discuss it because it's a product that I'm personally very interested in. For one, I've actually had a number of conversations with people in my life that don't actually know what Steam itself is. So sorry to explain it if you already know, but if you've been living under a rock, Steam is essentially, at least for PC, it's basically the main storefront and launching platform for games. And if you play games on PC, it's usually the place you would prefer to buy and own your games at. And it's all in this whole archived library that you can keep for years and years and years. And as you go from PC to PC to PC, you can bring it with you. And that's more or less what the service is. Now, Steam has one very important product out already, and they're launching a couple more. And the one that they have out already is this Steam Deck. And one of the coolest things about Steam is their cloud saves. So I can play a game on PC, save that file, then I can play the same game on the Steam Deck and just pick up where I left off. And that's just one of the many benefits. But Steam is a company that's garnered basically a lot of really positive community feedback over the years by not really making boneheaded decisions, which seems to be the downfall of every other gaming launching platform like Origin or EA. Now that we're all caught up, they're launching 3 new products: the machine, the frame, and the controller. The controller is basically their version of a controller. It's got these new anti-drift sticks on it. It's really sick. I actually really look forward to getting it in my hands and kind of playing with it, but there's not really much to talk about it until it's like actually here. The tech is cool. They added joysticks compared to the old controller version, which people are really pumped about. It looks fine, and I think price point will dictate if a lot of people buy it, but it could be a really good option for just general PC owners, not just people who own Steam products. So we're looking forward to that for sure. The other 2 products are the frame, which is this VR headset, and the machine, which is basically like a small Linux-based computer that runs SteamOS. This VR headset actually looks really sick, specifically because of something called foveated streaming, which is basically, because it's a wireless headset, my understanding is that they do some eye tracking, and depending on where your eye is focused, they bring up the resolution and the render quality of where your eye is seeing, and bring down the resolution and render quality of the other places. And this keeps the frame rate and the visible resolution as high as possible over streaming, which it connects to this little USB dongle, which should be pretty sick. And from the people who have tried it, it says it's actually not a noticeable feature, which I think is ideal. And I even think that something like foveated streaming might actually have long-term effects on just regular PCs. Having something that can do some eye tracking attached to your monitor that could bring up the resolution in only places that you're looking would be pretty interesting. And some people may not actually understand how this works, but cinema or movies and videos have been doing this for a long time with focus. When you're operating the camera, you're kind of deciding where people are going to look, and you're controlling their eye placement with focus. You're sort of telling them where to look with focus. And people's brains automatically adapt without even really realizing it, where they start looking at the place that has the highest focus level. This is taking that one step further, where it's actually adapting to where you want to look. And then the focus and the fidelity and the render quality goes to that place. So you're not really wasting as many resources on other places. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to try this one. I keep waiting for a point for VR to hit kind of the place where OLEDs have been out for a long time, where the image quality is just so spectacular that it just looks virtually perfect. It just looks amazing. And I think that the image quality specifically for VR still has a little bit to go. So I don't know if I'm going to personally invest the cash in this yet. But I think the technology is impressive nonetheless. And maybe I'll get a chance to try one and completely change my mind on that. But they usually have an image quality and a field of view issue for me, where they're not quite perfectly immersive yet. And I'm really hoping and waiting for that perfect visual immersion. Some things are getting really close, but I don't quite think it's exactly there yet. And then you have the Steam machine. This is what I'm personally very excited about. One, I'm a huge fan of just like PC and PC gaming. I have my entire library of games is like all of that money has been sunk into PC games specifically, and more specifically on Steam. So this product in general is kind of tailored a little bit more towards me already. And in my personal circumstance, I've kind of been waiting for a product like this that I can place in my front room that doesn't cost as much and isn't as big as a full-size PC. Nor as complicated for people like my wife to use. And that's where kind of SteamOS comes in, where SteamOS is extremely simple. It's extremely user-friendly. It's not nearly as complicated as Windows for somebody who didn't grow up using Windows. For example, my wife, she's not a computer person at all. And she likes operating systems like what Xbox has and like Nintendo and like Steam. So she'll be able to use this, but I'll get the back-end kind of modularity and flexibility of it being a Linux-based computer attached to that, which is going to be really sick. Now, I keep seeing a couple comments that I want to talk about and maybe kind of explain why you might want this or might not. Some people are saying, well, why wouldn't you just make a PC, right? Valve themselves have even said that they're kind of pricing it to be more comparable to a PC, which is sort of fair, but it's also a little bit concerning. And it depends on what PC you're talking about, because if you're talking about raw computing power, something like a Mac Mini, if you don't care about operating system and you just need horsepower, those M chips are crazy, and the Mac Minis start, I think, at like $500 or $600. And I think Mac Minis for CPU are going to be a lot more powerful than the machine will, but they won't really be able to do gaming because of Mac OS. But people are saying, well, it's not really a PC and it's not quite a gaming console, it's something in between. And personally, I mean, everybody knows how popular gaming is. And I think that's actually a really smart product to make, is because there's lots of people who want to build a PC or want to have a PC, but want it 90% of the time for gaming and 10% of the time for other stuff. That's kind of exactly the niche that the Steam Machine fits. And a lot of people have consoles and wish it could do more or be a little bit more modular or capable in some other way. And that's exactly where the Steam Machine fits as well. So this product is clearly designed not to be either option fully. It is not fully a console and it's not fully a PC. I mean, it sort of is, but like it's not structured as a PC necessarily. Specs are looking pretty cool. It's got a custom AMD Zen 4, got an RDNA 3 GPU, 16 gigabytes of DDR5, which is okay. Depends on the price, and 8 gigs of RAM for the GPU, and either a 512 or 2 terabyte M.2 storage, plus the option for expandable storage, which is huge and really important. The other thing to think about here, if you are a gamer, because you might be curious, like, okay, why would I invest the extra money that this might cost over something like an Xbox, which are like between $600 and $800? Like, what if this costs like $1,000 or $1,200, right? And it really comes down to the additional stuff you can do with the system. And just to keep it on gaming, for an example, if you like VR, you can plug in a VR headset, any VR headset that you want, to this machine. And that's not something that was possible on, let's say, an Xbox or a PS5, unless you only want to use the PS5 VR. If you like flight simulators or sim racers that have custom rigs that aren't just kind of those cheap kind of GameStop style wheels or something, you can use all that on the Steam Machine and you can't on an Xbox. And just mouse and keyboard support for every single game. That's also not something that you can do on Xbox, where some games work with mouse and keyboard and then some games don't allow it. And that's not even going into all the stuff that you can do on just the normal Linux portion of this little machine. So there's a lot that you can do. It's just a matter of if you're going to want to. And for people like me, I want to. And for some people, they don't. And I think for them, consoles are a fine option. And for people who need a lot of extra stuff, full PCs are still available. So this is a really good filling the gap type of product. A lot of people are mentioning that they're just going to get the controller and they're not really interested in the more expensive VR or the machine, or they might even already have a deck and they just want the controller to go along with it. I think that's super valid. The controller looks sick. This comment says, why do people want the machine? It's just a mega budget PC with an 8 gig GPU. I mean, you'll be able to play indie on it, but AAA games will be sub 1080p by the time it comes out. So Valve has stated, which I take with a grain of salt, that their goal is to achieve 4K 60 with certain conditions for every game on Steam. Now, do I think that's likely to happen? No, of course not. But I think it's a good aspirational goal, and it really depends on what settings we're talking about changing here. Because let's say Xbox, right? If you play Xbox versus a high-end PC on the same display, it's very clear that even though Xbox is hitting high frame rates, that the image fidelity is just nowhere near as good as a high-end PC. But the price delta is massive and very different. My PC is extraordinarily expensive compared to an Xbox, but it also looks way better. This is going to be interesting to see what the image compromises are versus something like a cheap PC or a Xbox, for example. And ultimately, we really won't know until it comes out and people have it in their hands, which is something that maybe I'll make a video on when I do buy it. This comment says, I don't understand why people are hyped about these products in the first place. I use Linux and appreciate all they've done for Proton, but the controller looks uncomfortable. Frame is a niche product and a machine is just a computer with SteamOS, which you can install yourself. And the deck is an improved existing product. So to be honest, I'm pretty disinterested in all of it. Valve hardware has been a mixed bag in general. I think on the controller, honestly, it's hard to tell unless you have it in your hands. That's just kind of the truth. It's like, it's really difficult to feel ergonomics just by looking. Frame is definitely a niche product, but I think that VR, it's not there yet. And I think that's why you don't have mass adoption, but I think it will hit a point in the future, not yet, we're not there quite yet, where it just is the best gaming experience you can have. Imagine something with a fully like OLED image quality with crazy brightness, with crazy deep blacks, and like resolution that has no screen dooring, has no chromatic aberration, has no pancake lens flaring. It doesn't have anything like that. It's just like a perfect visual image with high frame rates, and anywhere you look, it just looks real. When that singularity point eventually happens, it's gonna be sick. And I think that steps in that direction from any company are good to have. And Valve is just kind of increasingly stepping that level up. And right now, all VR and even AR, things like the Meta glasses are niche products. That's just the nature of what they are. But I don't think niche products are bad. It's just you're not interested, and that's okay. Tom from MySpace says, the PC is supposed to be a fair price gaming PC that removes the hassle of the kind of build it yourself aspect for a lot of people. And that part I think absolutely nails it. It's not that Linux is really necessarily going to be the best for users, but I think that most users aren't going to be using the Linux portion of it necessarily. I think most people are going to be specifically kind of never really leaving the interface of SteamOS, if I'm being honest. I think that that's how most people will use things like the deck and the machine. And I also think that for me, where it's like, okay, I'd like to have like a budget front room kind of console style thing that isn't an Xbox. And I think that this might be really perfect for that, where I can just buy existing hardware that performs at a level that is understandable and pretty consistent across the board, and then just slap that in my front room. And then Shelby or friends or anybody can use it with basically no learning curve whatsoever, which is awesome. But I think all of this depends on price. That's kind of the big question. And they went out of their way to say, oh, it's going to be priced like a PC, but it's like, what does that mean, right? Like compared to what PC? Compared to consoles are expensive. I think the top of the line Xbox right now is like $800. And so if this is either trying to beat that, it's going to have to be less than $800, or maybe they're just trying to beat budget PC builds, which tend to be over $1,000 even for a cheap one. So I think that the price is more than likely going to fall between $800 and $1,200. If it's cheaper than that, that'd be crazy. But they've already said that they're not really looking at this as a loss leader type product like they're looking at the Steam Deck, even though I kind of wish they would. I think that would be smart for them, but they're a smart company. They know what they're doing better than I would. So we'll see on the pricing, and assuming that it's fair or better than fair pricing, I'll pick it up and I'll make a video or a series of videos on it. And hopefully you guys want to see that. All right. Thanks. Bye.